Today on the show, strategy plus action equals creating short, concise video that isn't boring. Great coaches and consultants like you have the ability to change people's lives and transform entire organizations. And your impact can often go far beyond the clients you work with. One of the reasons I love working with coaches and consultants is because of that ripple effect. This show is here to highlight your expertise and empower you with resources and new ideas to grow your business. Welcome to Strategy in Action. Chris Bogue is on the show today. We're talking about the power in creating short, quick, enjoyable videos out there, both in the content marketing side of things. So posting out on LinkedIn to grab that attention, educate your audience, but also in the sales process, directly, messaging your prospects out there with these short little fantastic videos that are, all about them. Chris does an amazing job of grabbing attention out on LinkedIn. That's how I came across him was, his hilarious videos, jumped on a LinkedIn Live he was doing, talking about the process a little bit. But what's even more important than the grabbing attention part, or at least just as important, is the systems and processes that Chris helps his clients with in order to create this content, because he works with folks all the time who have never done this before, and they're bought in, they know they have to do it or should do it, but it's it's a foreign language to them. They have no idea how to go about this. And through his course, through his individual training, through his free content, all of that, his process and his focus is helping folks jump in and create where they are and create for their audience, not to go and do it like he does it, but do it like they should do it. And it's a very powerful distinction, but he also knows the sales world, the business world, and knows what it takes to really move the needle when it comes to those direct outreach videos, for instance. So we had a blast talking about this subject, and I know you'll get a ton out of it. So let's jump in. Chris Bogue, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, Jason.
Yes, absolutely. I had the good fortune to stumble across your stuff on LinkedIn. And for those who don't know, by your stuff, I mean some absolutely hilarious video content. And everyone after this episode certainly will be running out to check that out. And that's why I really wanted to have you on the show today, was to talk about that creation of actual fun content, what on LinkedIn, really, which should surprise everyone who's been on LinkedIn. They usually don't get the fun stuff, the funny stuff, the entertaining stuff.
The stuff that's actually enjoyable for another human being. No, LinkedIn doesn't normally do that.
Exactly. That's what's it's so mind-blowing, I guess, when, I don't know, maybe, any human who has consumed enjoyable content thinks this way, but certainly folks who have, created things outside of LinkedIn and kind of jump into the platform and wow, what's going on? So I want to dig into that and how you're approaching that for sure, because I absolutely love it. And then, really give people some actionable steps and hopefully some insights into, I could actually do that as well, some version of that. But just to give somebody, everybody some geography a little bit, what's some of your background when it comes to comedy, content creation, and why jump into the LinkedIn playground?
Yeah. So just like for the audience's reference, my name is Chris Bogue, and my specialty is mercifully short video content. And that looks a couple different ways. That might be short videos on LinkedIn or TikTok. They may be edutainment, where they're teaching you something, but they're funny. Sometimes they're real. Sometimes they are instructional. I'm a publisher of a course about how to sell on video. This is an area of sales that there's been very little research done, that there's been very little strategy around. But, we all have these HD cameras in our pockets now, and these sales teams don't know how to use them. They're still making cold calls. They're still making cold emails. You can just make a 30-second video and get seen by anybody in the world. But sales teams haven't really figured out how to do it at scale yet. So, I picked that up. I started doing that, started training people to make video content because I have been performing for a long time. I've been doing comedy for over 15 years. So improv and stand-up comedy. I was born and raised here in the Second City, Chicago. So, spent a couple years just not only doing shows, like improvised comedy shows, written sketch comedy shows, but I spent a lot of time as a director and as a writer. So I have a lot of experience working with groups that I'm not in, where I'm helping them come up with the message, but it's them. They got to own the message. They got to go out there and perform. And my specialty has always been getting a good performance out of people, so
that's a really important distinction, right? Like there's like in a lot of areas, like, oh, I can do it, so I'm going to go teach people how to do it. Well, that's a very different thing. And I think that's something for people to grab onto when they're searching out help, and they see somebody doing, maybe they're creating awesome videos.
There's got to be a process, it's a creative process and
feedback and absolutely.
Yeah. And the reason why I am out here doing entertaining stuff very loudly is because I have worked in so many tech companies. I've been in the Chicago tech scene for a long time, and they don't create space for this. They don't budget time to go be creative. They want it to happen on the nights and weekends, and it just doesn't happen that way. It's a process. And I come from a school of thought where it's like, and there's a lot of people who trained at the Second City. It's Bill Murray and Tina Fey and Chris Farley and Bob Odenkirk and Stephen Colbert and Key and Peele and, so many people. But it's like Stephen Colbert does not have a job where he can just go in there and then say, oh, I had writer's block today. I wasn't able to think of anything funny. He's got to have an hour's worth of entertainment no matter what, and I want to show them, if you create the space for it, you can put content out there that reflects well on your brand, that reflects well on you, that is fun, that creates a sense of community, and that demonstrates you understand the problems that your prospects are dealing with. But you got to actually take the time to do it. And the nature of the algorithm is you got to be out there every single day. And the nature of sales is you got to be creating multiple videos a day, at least 5 or 10 a day, if your job is outbound sales, and you got to be setting meetings and closing deals with video, so it has to become second nature. You have to be able to just do it and send it and not really think about it. And business schools do not teach this yet. And I think it's going to be a long time before they start teaching it. They're going to take a while to catch up.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different subject. Schools playing catch up, for sure.
They just can't. Everything changed too fast.
Yeah.
They can't, and it was like there was this leveling out that happened, and for me, it was like I always felt very insecure about myself. I always felt like there was this party going on, and everybody was there except me. And then COVID happened, and everybody started working from home. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, we're all just in our living rooms, and all these sales trainers, they teach you to do this like big, loud presentation. And, I spent some work doing network television. I've done some web series. I've spent more time in front of a camera than most sales leaders have. And it's like, these are sensitive microphones. You don't need to project to the back room. You can do a lot more with less. And I found that in sales, particularly, if you treat your prospect like they're sitting at a table with you drinking coffee, and you're just speaking to them like you're in the middle of a conversation, like, yeah, you can get their attention quite easily. You can get them to listen to your message if it's 30 seconds long, but that's easier said than done. A lot of people struggle with that.
Oh yeah, big time. That's one of the things that I bet that's one of the biggest surprises people have when they come in and start doing this is when they, oh yeah, I need to create this, 15-second clip, and it's 3.5 minutes, and you're like, what? That's a big one for sure. Where do you start with folks, right? People who are just like, I know I've got to do it. This is a foreign language to them. The whole idea of what you described, 5 of these a day for outbound sales, 1 a day for LinkedIn. That's just, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. How do you start with those folks?
Yeah. So no matter if you're doing video content or if you're doing video prospecting for sales, I'm always starting with one member of the audience, and when I'm coaching somebody, when I'm training with somebody, again, this is I think a big difference between me and a lot of LinkedIn content creators. They're trying to get the message that's going to land with 1 million people. So they speak very generically sometimes, or it's these very kind of hokey stories about like, oh, I used to be so sad, but now I make $1 million. Like, isn't that great? And it's like, again, they're trying to think like, what would a mass audience respond to? But when you flip that around, when you take one person and you're like, okay, they're sitting there at the coffee table with you, what's one thing you want them to understand? By the time they're done with this, like, I want them to learn one thing, or I want them to feel one thing, or I want them to understand something that they might not understand. When you start there, it becomes a lot easier to find the words,
Yeah.
And I always say for business content, there's 2 ideas that work for any company. And number 1 is, this is who we are. And number 2 is, this is how we solve problems. This is who we are. That could be the company. You can have the different voices, the different people who actually go and who, your dollars are actually supporting. You can show the customers, you can show the users on the client end. That's the easiest way for prospects to see, hey, that person looks like me. They're having the same problems that I'm having. There's an infinite number of things you could do on that. And then how do we solve the problems? You're going to tell me that your solution is one of a kind. Show me that. Just go out there and show me the things that you do that nobody else does. Show me that the problems I have, you've thought through them thoroughly. There's a million ways you could do that. And I actually find if you're going out there and you're throwing one little bit out at a time, you can actually cover way more ground. I can cover 50 different topics in 1 month, as opposed to like making a couple really dense videos that honestly nobody is going to completely watch. And if they do, they're probably not going to internalize it,
Yeah, I try to guide people to, because that's a great point. Like, I guide people onto where they are in the funnel, right? If somebody's way down, they're super interested, well, then they'll watch a 15-minute video that's you talking to your ideal client, right? That's way down, and they're bought in. They'll sit through that stuff. But yeah, to hook them, it's not just length of video. That's where I know a lot of people get hung up. How long should my video be? Well, no, it's more about what you just described. It's that singular idea, right? Getting that across, one idea, one call to action, and then on to the next. And that's really important.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I believe in long form content too. I do long form content. I do an hour-long live stream that's cut into, a podcast. I'm writing a book. I'm hoping to be releasing my book soon. I read books. I'm not saying that like, I don't believe that people don't have attention spans anymore. People will sit and play video games for an entire day. People will watch entire series on Netflix. So like they can give their undivided attention. They're just very selective about what they're going to give their attention to. And for good reason, because there's more competition than ever. And we're all fighting for the same screen, So the reason why I focus on the short content is because I've never met like a sales manager who needed coaching to be more long-winded. Like they can all go up there and talk at length. They have no problem doing that. Most of them can't get it to less than 60 seconds. And especially in sales, that is important. You know, if you are out there uninvited in their inbox, you know, if you got 2 messages there and one is 5 minutes long and rambling and the other one is 30 seconds long and it's all about you and it's personalized to you, the 30-second one is going to win out, just because it's like, it has always been a difficult game for attention. It's always hard to get someone's attention for sales when they don't have a relationship with you, really. You need to be very respectful of their time.
Absolutely. And definitely on all of these, whether you're making that for your homepage or about page or out on LinkedIn or these outgoing things, that focus on the viewer, that focus on it's the same approach we're finally hammering through to people with a website, right? Like that your homepage should barely mention you. It's about the person who's visiting. Can these people solve my problem? And if you can take that same approach with the videos you create, especially, my goodness, like you mentioned, if you're sending that to a prospect, it better be intriguing because it's about them and their problem or their, the solution you can provide. That's everything.
Let's actually dig into this, because that's not how companies train their teams to make videos. That's how I train people to make videos. I say, look, you're making a human connection and you're making it very easy for them to take the next step with you, whatever that next step is. You know, it works at any stage in the process. What sales teams are doing is they're making a 5-minute product demo and blasting it out to 1,000 people. And then when it doesn't work, they're like, well, I guess video just doesn't work. And it's like, hey, they didn't ask you for a product demo yet, you know? It's just people don't watch commercials. They skip past commercials. You just sent them a 5-minute commercial with no context. Of course they didn't watch it, you know? Again, it's only 5 minutes. Like, well, there's only so many hours in a day. And that's the thing too. It's like they've got all these technologies built in where it's like you can share your screen, you know, and they'll do these moves that I think are actually kind of creepy, where it'll be like, oh, hey, look, I turned your LinkedIn page into my background because I want to show you that it's bad. And you could pay me to like fix up your LinkedIn profile or whatever. And I tried that, and it doesn't, shocker, people don't like strangers showing up and just telling them everything they do is wrong, you know?
Really?
My method is
weird.
all
Okay.
about consent. It is consent-based selling. And that looks something like this. If you have a company and you pay for marketing, I'm 100% allowed to interact with your content marketing. And lucky for you, that's what you pay your marketing team for in the first place. You want comments, you want likes, you want interaction. That's what marketing exists for, right? So if there's a company that is relevant to me, I am aligned with them in terms of my service offerings, in terms of the problems I solve, in terms of their values and my values, then yes, of course I can go leave a comment when they make a cool piece of content that I enjoy, right? So if I'm interacting with a content marketing team, it's totally cool for me to go send them a connection request on LinkedIn, right? So once we're connected there, it's fine with me if I want to start talking with them. And usually, I connect with people and I give it a few weeks or I give it a few months and I just kind of see how the relationship develops naturally, you know? But then when I do have to reach out to a decision maker, maybe I'll connect with them, but I can say, hey, I've been following your content team for a while now. I love your stuff. Hopefully we can connect, right? So if they connect with me and I'm engaging with their stuff, and then I see them clicking the like button on my stuff, right? Because all my content is about the problems that I solve. And if I see them regularly interacting, they're getting in on the comments, they're clicking the like button, yeah, it is totally okay for me to send them a 30-second video saying, hey, I appreciate your support. I noticed that we have a lot of alignment on X, Y, and Z, and here's what I do. I help teams make these videos at scale. Let me know if you'd be open to a conversation about that.
Yeah, that's
and I have a
strong.
very high response rate. Sometimes I get 100% response rates. My clients usually see around 60 to 70% response rates. It's not always yes, but they usually don't ghost us. They usually either say, hey, I appreciate the video. Here's why I'm going to say no thanks. But usually it's like you send out 5 videos, you get 3 or 4 responses, 1 or 2 of those goes to a meeting. That's a really efficient way to do outbound, but
Oh, yeah.
It requires a lot of extra steps before you send that video if you really want to increase the likelihood of it getting responded to.
Yeah, for sure. But it's still a part of the process. It's still something that a team can implement. It still can be, this is what you do 30 minutes a day. Here's what it's be a human on here. That is step 1, interact, go through here, but be purposeful. Yes. Have a CRM, track this information, do the, log some of that stuff. But when you do it more than just this, okay, I'm going to do 100 of these today and just barrage everybody. Oh my goodness. No, then if you are trying to personalize things, it's very weird and stilted and feels like you're filling in, you're playing Mad Libs with their stuff. But if you can do the version that you've described, it's just, by the time you get to that, creating a quick little video to send over, you're interacting with them back and forth. It's so easy because you actually have interacted with their content. Oh yeah, that's right. They went to the game last weekend. Let me put that in there,
And there's so many different creative ways that I have not even discovered yet. I always say, like, I've been deep into this stuff for a couple years now. I have not even begun to scratch the surface of what is possible with video. It is this whole new game, but the only thing they're willing to try is have the SDR send it out cold. They don't have a lot of curiosity when it fails. Where I've found that, like, for SDRs, you can do some interesting approaches, like getting them to ask you to send a video. I find this is effective. I had a client who is kind of in an old school industry. They were not super on LinkedIn. The decision makers were hard to reach. You had to call and go through a gatekeeper, very old school. But what we did, and it was in mining technology. He had a piece of mining technology. So again, the coal mines, not a very expansive industry, and they're certainly not posting their hot tips on LinkedIn.
They're not bringing Gary Vee in to give a keynote down in the mine.
No, but they actually answer the phone, which is funny. Because B2B companies don't do that. But you like, basically what you do then is you figure out who your decision maker is. And if the gatekeeper, won't let you through to them, you say, hey, I understand. I bet they're pretty busy right now. But, we're taking meetings with the owners of some mines later on in, the month. And what we do is, if there's any interest at all, our media team makes a short video highlighting what we think you might get out of it. So we wanted to see if we could send that over to you. And then, they'll ask them, or sometimes they'll put you through to them. And now you can ask all your discovery questions. You can ask what they're in the market for. You could, you can gather all that information. And again, it doesn't have to be this crazy production. You go to your phone has an HD camera, and it's, hey, Jason, it was great meeting with you today. And here's what I'd like to talk to you about. I'm interested in chatting with you about this. I see a lot of alignment here. I think I could bring some value here. We'd like to know by this date. Let me know if you have any questions about that. And you could put a call to action in there. A lot of times I found calls to action are better when they're soft in video. Sometimes I'll say either respond to this message with anything, if you want more information, or let me know if you're not interested. Or sometimes I'm like, hey, I'm doing this because I know you guys are going to need some time to think this weekend. I'm going to be reaching out on Monday. Let me know if you need to know anything in the meantime, but this way they're actually getting the information without having to, like, guard themselves from me, and when a salesperson is convincing you, especially on a cold call, people are very naturally protective because they know that other person is like trying to outwit them because they are financially incentivized to do so. So I really feel the video allows your prospect to experience your message on their own time in a situation where they can feel more comfortable and actually give your words the consideration that they need.
Yeah, and I think the best, sales approach, sales energy, anyway, however you're doing it, is very, yeah, here's this thing I got. I think here's how I think it could help you. If you got any questions about that, like, that's where you should be by the time it gets to, yeah. the hard sales call. And if you can have that energy, whatever version of that needs to be, if you can have that energy, that's what lets the guard down from folks. And exactly what you're talking about. That's what I'm always looking for, right? It's just, honestly, like, hey, I don't even know if you'll be a good client. Like, maybe it sounds weird. I just want to have a conversation, and talk and figure that out.
Yeah. And then I say too, going back to the video content, I say that's where you go handle objections. Handle objections in your content. That's another ready-made, tailor-made content category for anybody trying to get started. What are the objections you hear all the time? What are the most common questions you get? That is always the stuff you can go to. And again, you want to tell me you save time and money? Well, your audience doesn't necessarily believe that because everybody says they're going to save them time and money. So show them that. Show them that. Put your solution in action. Let me see what it does. And that's the other thing too, that my style is very different from a lot of people on LinkedIn because I've been trained in a lot of these kind of obscure theater styles. But I was always taught to like take the audience on an experience with you. It's not so much, and I mean, sometimes I'm just teaching them. Sometimes I'm a talking head, just explaining a lesson to them. But whenever I can, I like throwing them into the middle of a situation where they don't know what's going to happen. And I do this. I've been, the course, it's called The Complete Guide to Selling on Video. It's a fun challenge for me because sales teams don't realize they're bad at this, and they don't realize that they should have a process and they should get better. So I'm making these infomercials that show that, and it's really fun to kind of use sketch comedy and a lot of these funny tropes from infomercials to highlight why their processes are working so badly right now and why they need to consider other approaches.
Is that what you mean by throwing them into it, by like putting them into basically reframing their world for them a little bit? Is that what you mean by like, how would you pull that or even teach people to kind of pull the audience in?
I do that in a lot of different ways. So like, just like some random examples. The first time I ever went viral on TikTok, it was me doing Jordan Belfort's Sell Me This Pen challenge, and I was gonna do an explainer video to the audience being like, oh, this is what you should do if ever you have to do the Sell Me This Pen thing. I'm like, what? I'd rather show them that. So I created this boss character who's now very popular and I use him all the time. But it starts and it's just him. And can I swear on this show or no?
Oh yeah, it's preferred.
Okay. Yeah. So the boss comes out and he just shoves the pen right into the camera and he goes, sell me this fucking pen right here. You think you could sell anything? Show me how it's done. And that is how the scene from The Wolf of Wall Street starts. It's like, oh, the audience thinks, oh, I do the same trick that they do in the movie, but it doesn't work. And so now they're sitting there kind of like, oh, how is he going to sell this pen? And then it's me kind of having to create my own solution on the spot, using my personal selling style. So I did that and that blew up on TikTok and I was like, well, guess I'm doing characters again. And then, another example will be like, I do a lot of my clients come from the accessibility world, right? Because one thing about my videos is they are all captioned. I write my own captions. I do my own quality captions in my videos, and most LinkedIn content creators don't caption their videos. So I caption all my stuff, and I make content about how other people can caption their stuff too. And I've done videos where I'll just be talking and you'll see the captions on the screen, and then all of a sudden, and it like, there's no sound anymore and there's no captions. I cut out the volume track and then the sound comes back in. I go, yeah, you know what? That's what you sound like to your prospects. If they're in the back seat of an Uber and they don't have their AirPods in, they're not going to get your message, you know? And I could explain what it feels like to be deaf and unable to hear, or I could recreate that experience. I literally took the sound and the captions away, and that's how I show them, you know? Like for the course, it's very, very, you know, show instead of tell, you know? So I'll be doing things like the first module is all about like, how do you get a professional camera shot? You know, where do you put the camera? Where do you put the lights? And, you know, I'll be talking to them. I'll be like, yeah, you want your lights here and here. All of a sudden it cuts to a different camera angle. You can see where all the lights in the room are, and say, here's what it looks like in bad lighting. You know, and all of a sudden you can see it's just not as good. I tell the audience to use their phones, even if they have an iPhone 7, because the HD camera is amazing. Some of them film it on like an old iPad or like an old, you know, even a MacBook Pro from 2016 does not have HD camera. It's not an HD camera in the laptop. So, you know, I'll be talking and I'll be like, hey, you want to use your phone because you'll get this perfect video. And if you've got a MacBook that's this older, and then all of a sudden the screen is very fuzzy and grainy, you know, and you can actually see what it looks like. And, you know, I do this style where it's like, you got to sit down, you got to just batch them one after the other, you know? So you can click a button and watch me. And I just record 5 in a row, back to back to back as the camera runs, you know? But I really just believe in kind of like pulling the curtain back, showing them exactly how I do everything that I do. And that's how I teach. And that's also how I demonstrate that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And that's everything too, because we can get it. We can understand logically. Yes, I'm sure I could go make a video and do all of this. But until you feel it, until you really, oh, okay. And then, of course, until you sit there and you do it once, twice, 10 times, and you go through, you know, I feel like it's almost a roller coaster, right? At first, it's just like, oh, yeah, I can make videos, you know, and then you start understanding everything that goes into it. You're like, I don't know if I can make videos. And then, you know, someone guides you through it. It's like, well, no, it's a process, just this, and then you're back up again, right? Like, okay, I think I could do this, right?
Yeah. And, you know, again, I say it has to become a habit, especially if you're a content creator, especially if you're trying to do it out there on a platform like TikTok. You know, you got to feed the beast. It wants content every single day. And I tell all my clients the same thing. Like, look, you don't know what good content is. I don't know what good content is. The audience is going to reveal that to us. Like, your job is to just keep giving them stuff and keep making it good and keep making it real, like stuff that you would be willing to click on, you know, like it'd be actually interesting to you. You need to do that. And then once it works, once something takes off, we got to get very curious about what's working. You know, and the more it works, the more it lands, the more you realize like, oh, when I do material about X and Y and Z, my audience finds that really interesting, you know, and you got to keep in dialogue. You got to talk with your people. You got to, I get very curious about the people who are enjoying it, who are clicking it and liking it. I talk to them. I ask, was there anything that stuck with you? And yeah, you just give the people what they want. And the more different types of content hits, you know, the less I have to think about what am I going to say? And instead I start thinking about who am I going to play to? A lot of the reason why what I'm doing on LinkedIn looks a little bit more polished than other content creators is because I've learned from people who got very successful on YouTube in like the 2010s. You know, some of my mentors built, $1 million content empires, and they've got huge followings where they make a video and like millions of people watch it. So yeah, it's like just going and learning from them. It was just a huge game changer, and they taught me, if you want to build an audience of 1 million, go one by one. You go one by one. And occasionally something will hit. You try something, and then it's like, okay, I found a new little sub audience, And for me, it was like, I went out there, I started making sales content, and part of that audience is just sales bros. They're bros. They like making money. They like smashing their quotas. They like edgy humor. They like corporate bro, Ross Pomerantz's character. So I give them that. I give them a little comedy that can be a little adult sometimes. It's edgy. It's fast. And yeah, I keep up on the sales trends for them. I've also got this sub audience that are not salespeople. They're writers, they're performers, they're actors. Maybe they're a bit more introspective. So I give them content too, because I'm doing a style of sales that's better for them. And I've got deaf people, all those fans I have because they know to expect quality captions, and because I talk about accessibility and things they care about. That's a whole different sub audience. But the more these sub audiences emerge, the more it's like, oh, okay, well, I haven't made anything for the sales bros in a little bit, so I'll make a piece of comedy for them, or hey, here's one thing it looks like the shy people are kind of struggling with. Maybe I'll make a video about how, some techniques I used to improve at that, and another ready-made content idea I always say, go back in time 2 years and teach yourself something that, would have helped you out had you known then. It's always something where it's like, just imagine, visualize someone who's like, they're interested in all the same things you are. They're talented enough. They're smart enough. What's another thing I learned in improv that just goes against everything you hear in business and politics? It's all about like dumbing it down. And in improv, they always teach you to play to the top of your intelligence. Assume every single person in the audience is a smart person, and then start talking. And
interesting.
Yeah, and there's something to be said at copywriting being written at a 10th grade level maximum, or
Sure.
I agree with that, but especially on a platform like LinkedIn. You got to remember that the people who are interacting there, for the most part, are college educated, and they make a good amount of money.
Yeah, and especially if you're speaking to that sub niche of people, if you better sound educated in what they're educated about in their world. Like, you can drop those things. You don't have to speak in high level concepts, but when you can do exactly what you mentioned, talk to the smartest of them, speak in that way, that's one of those things that's like, oh, he's one of us. Okay, I got it. Yeah,
the comforting flip of that, I always say, is there are no children on LinkedIn. There's just not. It's the only platform where you don't have to compete with children for attention. There are no dancing teenagers, twerking away. That's a big thing on TikTok.
Yet.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if people want to do that, that's fine. But they're not doing it currently, really, and they're not doing much comedy either. I'm actually surprised more comedians aren't on LinkedIn, because again, you think, okay, this is an audience, it's educated, they have money. You can go for higher brow jokes, and people don't realize it. People go for like bottom of the barrel inspirational content. And it's like, the world changed really aggressively over the past couple of years, and we're just all trying to figure out this new way of working. And yeah, if you just go start talking about real things, you can actually have amazing conversations with people, but it's thinking about one person who's smart instead of like, oh God, what would a million idiots click the like button for?
Oh, I got to take that down off my wall. That's what. What would a million idiots click? Oh man, I got to start over. Is your main. Do you have an even split in terms of what you're helping people with? Because I know those are two very distinct things in terms of helping sales teams on the outreach kind of video, or folks creating content like you are to get that attention, posting content out on LinkedIn. Kind of a split, or.
I'm this weirdo who I consider them intertwined, and I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I do executive coaching. I do, people who are starting a business. I coach individuals too, because when you run your own business, like sales and marketing, like they have to work. It's not like these companies where marketing is off here doing one thing and sales is another. Like you have to make sure that they are supporting each other. And when I'm coaching an individual, it's like, again, you start with that one person. So it's like, who are we going to sell to? Literally, let's imagine them sitting there in the chair. What would we say to them if they were here? We had to convince them to give us some consideration. Then it becomes a matter of like, okay, let's start talking about the things they care about. And you don't even have to come up with that yourself. You just go find where they spend time. Maybe that's LinkedIn, maybe that's G2, maybe that's Twitter, maybe that's Instagram, maybe that's TikTok. Wherever your people hang out, just get into the conversations they're already having. You don't need to have the most profound message in the world. If you talk about finance, go get into the conversations about finance that are out there. And then, you start connecting with the people you want to sell to. You start mapping out their companies. You start connecting with the human entry points, the people who are putting content out there. You start getting to know them. You start becoming a part of their world. And then that's what your sales strategy is after. Who's connecting with you, who's resonating with your content, who has like the ideal customer profile and the job title that you need. And if you're getting the right buying signals, do your outreach, send your video, make your calls, send your email, do whatever you have to do. And again, I make those videos super short because I'm not selling in them. It's a 30-second video about them and I'm selling the conversation. If you'd like to chat with me about that, respond to this with anything. I say, give me a thumbs up if you want me to send some available times, and you can even send me a thumbs down if this is not in your wheelhouse at all. But just let me know, and like I'll see you out there on LinkedIn. And the beauty of this method is if 4 months from now they send me a thumbs up, I just send them my calendar link. You just pick it right up when they're ready. But you put that out there, and again, you adjust the content based on what's working and what's not working, based on the questions and objections you're getting. And another example I'll give you, one of my clients, successful consultant, speaker, he works in the accessibility space. And I got him doing live streams, right? He's a good listener. He's got a very impressive network. I got him doing live streams. He's bringing on guests from different parts of the accessibility world, different ages, different backgrounds, different races, different specialties, different disabilities. So they're coming on there. And then I go, you know what? I think you need a signer. If you want to be the accessibility podcast, but like, let's get a signer who's actually going to be on there. And he's like, I should get like a really like punk rock kind of signer who's like really kind of cool. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So he hires this woman to do the sign language in the interviews now. And she's really good at understanding the emotions of both sides of like she's good at mirroring the emotions of whichever speaker is talking. But when his prospects are scrolling through LinkedIn and his live stream pops up, they see him and another guest having a conversation about accessibility, and they see this cool person doing sign language, and even if they don't watch it, even if they take a look at it for half a second and keep scrolling, they got the message.
Oh yeah.
You showed them he is the accessibility guy. He makes it real. He makes it, fun to be around. He has this very inviting approach. And yeah, you didn't even need to turn on the sound. You didn't even need to sit down for 30 minutes. You watch it for 10, half of a second. You're like, oh, that looks cool, but I'm looking for other things today, You got to be thinking about all the different layers.
Oh yeah, you talk about a differentiator, and I think that's something to really grab onto, and a point I want to hammer home for folks is that find that for your industry, for your company, for your people, right, that are out there. Like nobody else. I've never seen it. Nobody else is doing that, right? On LinkedIn. What else is not happening out there that is just second nature if you go to a conference or if you hop on a Zoom call or whatever that is, or it's happening around your office? It's just like, oh, of course, that you can bring into LinkedIn, bring into video, that is going to be one of those things that, oh, that's my people. I need to pay attention a little more here. Like, finding that stuff.
And here's something I'll say too, because there's sometimes people get, they convince themselves that they don't have anything to say, or that they're not important enough to go out there and share their opinion. And part of the reason why I've become so addicted to this style of sales and this kind of content marketing was because of a study on the 2016 election. Now, I do not talk about politics. It's part of my brand. That's just not what I do comedy about. I'm trying to do something that I believe everybody can enjoy. But I read this study and it just changed my life, because they were trying to figure out what gets a person to change their vote. They were studying swing voters, so people who voted for one party in 2016 and changed which party they're voting for in 2020. So very important group of people to the election, very, very, very small percent of the country. And they found that it did not matter whether the person voted for Donald Trump or if they voted for Joe Biden. They responded the same way to the ads. And what they found was, if the ad was too high production, if there was too many, crazy Hollywood effects and spinning numbers and things like that, they didn't trust it. But if it was just a regular person speaking straight to the camera, that was what they found trustworthy. It was just someone being like, hey, I'm voting for Donald Trump. Here's why. Or hey, I live here in Florida. I'm a farmer. Here's why I'm voting for Joe Biden. That was what people found trustworthy. And as soon as I heard that, and you can see this yourself, Jason, or anybody who's listening to this, the next time you scroll through one of your platforms, you'll see these billion-dollar companies. They're doing ads where they've got like a phone and they're like, whoa, hey, what's up, everybody? We're just here with the family, hanging out. And it's like, yeah, there's so much distrust of the media and politicians and institutions. People trust the regular people they interact with, So if you're the person on their screen, and you're looking at them and you seem friendly, you seem professional, and you're talking about things that resonate with them, you are credible. They don't even need to, they're not going to go. I wish they would go Google me. They would find all my hilarious videos. They don't Google me. They listen for 10 seconds and they're like, I like that guy. He says things I care about. And then, they're on to the next thing. Like the feed moves so fast, but it's like, they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about what you're saying. And they're thinking about the way you're interacting with them.
Yeah. It's a wild, it's this sweet spot, right? Because, and amazing marketers like Frank Kern and those guys and stuff too, they'll tell you the exact same thing that study told you. Like when they talk about this shitty web page and this basic little video that they made accidentally, you know what I mean? And it looks like it, right? But it's just like, I don't know why, because we did this high production version and we did this one killed it all day long, like over and over again over the last few years.
You're going to be so angry.
Yeah. And I'm a video film guy 30 plus years, but I'm not going to argue with the data, right? Like I want to make pretty things, but I'm also going to listen to the the data when it comes to that, right?
That's the thing. I always tell people, and that's why so many people give up on content creation. And I'm like, look, the audience doesn't care how hard you worked on it. Unfortunately, some of the stuff you spend a lot of time on is going to bomb, and then something you made in 2 minutes is going to be a hit. And like, that's just kind of how it goes. That's why you got to keep getting out there, and you got to put stuff out there. And, even if you don't necessarily like the way you look or like the way your voice sounds, your audience might like you better than you do. Like, again, you don't know what good content is. They know better than you because they're the ones ultimately who are supposed to be consuming it. Right.
Yeah.
So,
and it's hopefully that realization is freeing for folks, right? And allows them to let those, inhibitions down and just like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Hopefully that happens. But to touch on that sweet spot too, because like that's the level of quality that just that personal, it doesn't mean crappy quality, and people need to hear you and see you and all that stuff. But it's also the sweet spot though is doing it, right? Because what still happens, just whatever that is in our brain, is that celebrity effect, that, hey, I know that person effect, whatever that is that happens when we watch somebody on video X number of times and then have a call with them, see them in real life, whatever that is. And we go like, oh, it's like, even if it's not happening consciously, it's in our reaction is just like, oh, it's so-and-so. And that is such an amazing power in doing this that you don't get from your static LinkedIn, picture or your all text post or your all of that stuff. And that's another really important thing, but you don't have to go, Hollywood budget to go and attain that phenomenon either.
No, I mean, there's a woman on TikTok. She gets millions of views. You know what her specialty is? She teaches you to make buttered noodles. Like, she literally is like, you buy the box of pasta noodles and you take butter and salt and pepper and Parmesan and you mix them up. And that's all her TikTok channel is. And she gets millions of views. Her fans love her. And she's just like, I go buy cheap ingredients from the grocery store so I can make food for my kids. And like, that's it. And it's like, wow. Why does she have millions of viewers? Because some people don't know how to make buttered noodles. They just, it's crazy, but and again, it's funny because you see musical instruments behind me. I've got like musical instruments here. I stopped playing for 15 years. I didn't know how to play. I just started picking up again, and I'm having so much fun. And there's people who went to music school. They're music teachers. They're not teaching music right now, and they just think they're worthless because they're not getting paid for that. It's like, just go teach the internet how to play clarinet. Like, a lot of my favorite YouTubers are just saxophone players who teach me how to practice. You don't need to be everything to everybody. If you go out there and give the knowledge that's real, and you really try to visualize that person in the audience and try to get them from here to here, you paid to learn those skills. Somebody would want to learn that for free. Yeah,
I think that's strong. That's such an important lesson that I want to wrap with too, is because people do see, even people who believe it and like, yes, I would love to do that. They see your content, they see the characters, they see the stuff that grabs attention, right? But that's almost like watching TV for folks, like in terms of, oh, I could never do that. I could never jump in. And I hope people have grabbed onto the fact that this is exactly what you teach. Yes, you're out there doing, that's your version. That's you. That's how you're going to grab attention.
And that's not what my sales videos look like.
Right, exactly.
Like, this method that I started doing, I was not running my own business. I was on a 3-year comedy dry spell. I was selling into universities. I was selling education technology to PhDs. I was not going out there telling jokes. I was talking about their research and critical thinking. and their class, and that's why I got the inspiration to go do this. And, the comedy certainly helps with the content marketing. I had to give myself my own little edge out there, but it's like, yeah, these were college professors. I do not have a PhD. There's no reason why they should have listened to me other than I was able to show up for 30 seconds speaking about what was important to them, So, and if can I just plug the course here? We're at the end of the show.
Please do. I'll plug away. You have given a ton of value, and I always want that. I love the idea. I love the course that you've got going on and the content you're producing. Please let people know.
Yeah, so if you want to buy my course, you can go to chrisbogue.io. It is called The Complete Guide to Selling on Video, because that's what it is. Even if you have no sales experience at all, by the time you get done with the course, you will have a video-based sales process that includes, lead generation, cold outreach, follow-up, referral language. You get scripts for every single stage of the process. So yeah, you will be able to make and send 100 videos a month by the time you're done with the course. It's 6 modules long and about 2.5 hours. So it moves quick. It'll teach you how to edit videos, teach you how to caption videos. It'll teach you all about the current LinkedIn and sales trends right now to set meetings. Yeah, $250 at chrisbogue.io.
And who should be looking at that? I can imagine just about anybody who needs to make a sale, right? Like across the board.
If you're a solopreneur or if you're a sales professional, so if you're an SDR, if you're an AE, if you're trying to hit a quota, I actually break it down because I have metrics that you should hold yourself to accountability. And I actually specify, if you're an SDR, here's the kind of output you should be doing. Here's the kind of results you should be expecting. Or if you're a founder, if you're running your own business, you should actually be seeing slightly better results, because you put founder in there, like that actually works better than SDR. So yeah, here's the metrics you should be holding yourself accountable to. But I've done both. I've hit quotas using video, and I've also launched my own business out of nothing using video. So you will learn either way. And if anybody's ever taken The Operating System by Justin Welsh, it's a popular course. He's like the big LinkedIn guy everybody follows. But I took his course. I loved it. It moves at about the same pace as Justin's course. So yeah, check out chrisbogue.io. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. So if you want to go check out Chris Bogue on LinkedIn, you can ring my bell. That will give you daily updates from me. I'm always putting out new comedy. I do live streams every Thursday at 3 p.m. You can find me on TikTok at Chris Sells His Soul. And you can follow me on Twitter at Chris Sells Soul. So I put a ton of free content out every day, all about video, about content marketing, about comedy, and about sales. So yeah, that's me plugging myself.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and I think the thing that I've loved the most from this conversation is what I hope people grab onto. I hope the people who maybe brush by real quick, a video of yours or 10 and like, oh, those are funny, those are hilarious. I hope this interview hammers home the fact that like, your stuff on this isn't somebody being silly and they're telling you to go be silly and make videos on LinkedIn and that's how you'll stand out. Like the absolute systematic process that this is and purposeful, know your industry. I love hearing, the metrics you've got in your course that you talk about and stuff. And I don't think I've ever said the phrase, I love metrics ever. But like, I love that approach.
You need, otherwise you're shooting in the dark. And I always say, it's like, I don't teach, I do the comedy because I did comedy for 15 years. So I wouldn't be true to myself if I wasn't allowing myself to do that. But,
yeah,
I work with teachers, I got a friend, she's a, she teaches dyslexic students and, she consults with schools on how to, work with dyslexic students. She gets 1.4 million views on TikTok every time she posts. She's not a comedian. She's not a supermodel. She's not an actress. She's a teacher and she's talking about what she knows. She's got an audience of 1 million, so you do not have to be funny. Whenever I'm working with a teacher, I don't tell them to go out there and do comedy. I tell them to go out there and teach.
I love it. Fantastic. Chris, thank you so much for this whole conversation. I encourage everybody to jump in and follow you everywhere they can. Buy the course. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of this show. If you want help creating authority building video content or even a client generating show of your own, go to MediaLeadsCo.com and let's connect. I'll talk to you soon on the next Strategy in Action.